My name is Jonas Merrick, and I'm about to tell you how my wife's non-working phone battery changed everything. Not in some romantic, technology brought us closer bullshit way, but in a, I discovered she was screwing her coworker and decided to destroy both their lives kind of way. It was a Tuesday night in March when I got home from my shift at Dallas Presbyterian's medical lab. I'm 39, I analyze samples for a living, and I make jokes to cope with the fact that most days I'm looking at evidence of people fading. My wife Haley always said my sense of humor was too dark. Turns out, she hadn't seen anything yet. The house was empty. Not unusual. Haley worked late at the boutique downtown, some fancy place where rich women bought overpriced dresses, but her car was in the driveway, purse on the kitchen counter, phone nowhere to be found. I called her, straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's Haley. Leave a message unless you're my husband asking what's for dinner because the answer is always takeout." Cute. Real cute. I tried texting. Nothing. Called again an hour later. Still nothing. By 9 p.m. I was getting worried. By 10, I was getting suspicious. By 11, when her phone finally buzzed with an incoming call, I was ready for answers. "Jonas, stop calling me. You're getting on my nerves." Her voice was sharp, annoyed, like I was some telemarketer instead of her husband of 8 years. "Where are you? Your car's here. Your purse is here." "I'm fine. I'm with Kim. Girls' night. Stop being so clingy." The line went silent. Now, I'm not a detective, but I work with details for a living. Type A doesn't suddenly become Type O because you want it to. And my wife's voice doesn't usually sound like she's sitting in a car with the radio playing classic rock in the background when she's supposedly at Kim's apartment. Kim lives alone. Kim hates music. Kim's idea of entertainment is watching home renovation shows in complete silence. I sat in our living room, our modern, slightly cluttered living room with its IKEA furniture and wedding photos on the mantel, and I thought about that phone call, the background noise, the defensive tone, the fact that she'd never, not once in 8 years, told me to stop calling her. If I wanted to be single, I should have learned to cook, but I wasn't single yet. I pulled up our shared cell phone account online. Took me 20 minutes to remember the password, her maiden name plus our anniversary. Real secure, Haley. The call logs were interesting. Very interesting. Dozens of calls to a number listed as Pierce D. late-night calls, early morning calls, calls during her lunch breaks that lasted 47 minutes. Pierce D. Pierce Dalton. I knew that name. Haley's coworker at the boutique. Tall guy, drives an Audi S7, wears suits that cost more than my monthly salary. The kind of guy who says summer as a verb and thinks craft beer is a personality trait. I'd met him at the boutique's Christmas party. He'd shaken my hand like he was doing me a favor, smiled like he knew something I didn't, and spent the entire evening talking about his weekend trips to Napa Valley. Now, I was starting to think maybe he did know something I didn't. I checked our shared cloud photos. Most recent uploads were from 3 days ago. Haley at some upscale bar downtown, laughing, holding a martini. She was wearing the red dress I'd bought her for Valentine's Day. She wasn't alone. Pierce Dalton was sitting across from her, leaning in close, his hand on her wrist. The timestamp showed 8:47 p.m. on Saturday. The same Saturday she'd told me she was having a quiet night in with Kim because she had a headache. Nothing says loyal wife, like photos that prove she's a lying, cheating piece of work. I scrolled through more photos. Dinner at a restaurant I couldn't afford. Drinks at another bar. Pierce's hand on her back. Haley laughing at something he was saying, looking at him the way she used to look at me, the way she hadn't looked at me in months. I sat back in my chair, staring at my laptop screen, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not heartbreak, that would come later. This was something else. Something calculating. My phone buzzed. Text from Haley. "Staying at Kim's tonight. Don't wait up." I looked at the timestamp on the bar photos again, then at the call logs, then at the text message. "All right, Haley, your move." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I did what I do best. I analyzed the data. 8 years of marriage, 2 years of dating before that, 10 years of my life with a woman who was apparently spending her free time playing grab-ass with some pretentious asshole who probably used the word artisanal unironically. By morning, I had a plan. Not revenge. Not yet. First, I needed proof. Real proof. The kind that would hold up in divorce court and make sure Haley didn't walk away with half of everything I'd worked for. I called in sick to work. Food poisoning, I told them. Technically true, the thought of my wife's betrayal was making me nauseous. First stop, the bank. I transferred half our savings to a separate account. Legal, since my name was on everything, and smart, since I had a feeling Haley might try to clean us out once she realized I knew. Second stop, a lawyer's office. Clara Wyatt, divorce attorney. Her ad in the phone book promised aggressive representation for wronged spouses. Her office was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a Chinese restaurant, which should have been my first clue that she wasn't exactly high-end legal counsel. But Clara Wyatt turned out to be exactly what I needed. Cheating wife? She asked before I'd even sat down. She was maybe 50, with steel gray hair and the kind of sharp eyes that suggested she'd seen every variation of human stupidity. How did you know? Honey, 90% of my clients are here because their spouse is sleeping with someone else. The other 10% are here because their spouse is stealing from them. You look like the cheating wife type. I showed her the photos, the call logs, the timeline of lies. She nodded, made notes, and quoted me a retainer fee that made my eye twitch. Can you prove adultery? I asked. Can you get more evidence? I'm working on it. Good. Texas is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery can still affect property division. Get me proof, and I'll make sure she doesn't see a dime she doesn't deserve. I liked Clara Wyatt. Third stop, Haley's workplace. The boutique was called Lux, which should have been my second clue about the kind of people my wife was spending her time with. It was all white walls, expensive lighting, and clothes that cost more than most people's rent. Haley was working, helping some woman try on a dress that probably cost more than my car payment. She saw me walk in and her face went pale. Jonas, what are you doing here? Thought I'd surprise you for lunch. I can't, I'm busy. She gestured to the customer who was examining herself in a three-way mirror with the intensity of a surgeon. No problem, I'll wait. I browsed the men's section. Apparently they sold overpriced t-shirts and jeans for guys who wanted to look like they didn't care about money while spending enormous amounts of it, and listened to the staff gossip. Kim was there, working the register, talking to another employee about weekend plans. No mention of girls' night, no mention of Haley staying over. Interesting. Jonas, Kim spotted me and walked over. What brings you here? Just wanted to take my wife to lunch. Thanks for letting her crash at your place last night, by the way. Kim's face went blank for about 2 seconds too long. Oh, yeah, of course, anytime. She was a terrible liar. You two have fun watching those home renovation shows? Yeah. You know me, always renovating something. Kim lived in a rental apartment and wasn't allowed to change the paint color, let alone renovate anything. But I just smiled and nodded. Well, I should let you get back to work. Tell Haley I stopped by. I left the boutique with more questions than answers, but one thing was clear. Kim was covering for Haley, which meant Kim knew about Pierce. Fourth stop, Pierce Dalton's apartment complex. I'd looked up his address online. Amazing what you can find with a little effort and a Google search. He lived in one of those luxury places with a name like the Meridian or Skyline Commons, all glass and steel and monthly rent that could feed a small country. His Audi was in the parking garage, spot 247. Silver, spotless, probably cost more than I made in a year. I didn't do anything to it, not yet. But I memorized the license plate, took note of the security cameras, and started thinking about possibilities. That evening, Haley came home around 7. She was wearing different clothes than she'd had on at work, and her hair looked like she'd just run her fingers through it. "How was your day?" I asked, not looking up from my laptop. "Fine, busy, the usual. Kim said you two had a great time last night." Haley froze halfway to the kitchen. "Yeah, it was nice to catch up." "What did you watch?" "Watch?" "On TV, while you were catching up." "Oh, some movie. I don't remember the name." I nodded and went back to my laptop. On the screen was Pierce Dalton's LinkedIn profile. According to his bio, he was a fashion industry professional with a passion for luxury retail and customer experience optimization. In other words, he sold overpriced clothes to rich people and thought that made him sophisticated. Haley disappeared into the bedroom. A few minutes later, I heard her phone buzz with a text message, then another, then a quiet conversation that lasted about 10 minutes. When she came back out, she was smiling. "I'm going out with the girls tomorrow night. Work thing. Team building." "Sounds fun. Where?" "Just some bar downtown. Nothing fancy." I smiled back. "Have a good time." After she went to bed, I sat in the living room and planned my next move. I had photos, call logs, and a growing pile of lies. But I needed more. I needed something that would destroy both of them completely. Because if there's one thing I learned from analyzing samples all day, it's that contamination spreads. And Pierce Dalton was about to find out what happens when you contaminate my marriage. Game on, lover boy. Thursday morning, I filed for divorce. Clara Wyatt had prepared all the paperwork. Irreconcilable differences, with a side of adultery allegations and a request for an unequal division of assets based on Haley's dissipation of marital funds through extramarital activities. Legal speak for, she cheated, so she gets nothing. The process server would find Haley at work. I wanted her to be surprised, embarrassed, and surrounded by her gossipy coworkers when she got served. Call it the opening shot in what Clara cheerfully referred to as strategic carnage. I went to work that morning like nothing had changed, collected samples, ran tests, and joked with the nurses about how lab results were more honest than dating profiles. My friend Gabe, who worked in the ER, stopped by during his break. "You look like hell," he said. "Everything okay?" "Haley's cheating on me." Gabe nearly choked on his coffee. "What? Are you sure?" I showed him the photos on my phone. His face went from shocked to angry to something that looked like admiration. "Jesus, Jonas, what are you going to do?" "Already doing it. Filed for divorce this morning." "Damn. You need anything? Someone to help you move? Someone to slash his tires?" "I appreciate the offer, but I've got this handled." And I did. By noon, Haley had been served. By 12:30, my phone was buzzing with angry text messages. "What the hell is wrong with you? We need to talk. You can't do this." I ignored them all and went to lunch. At 3 p.m., my phone rang. Haley sobbing. "Jonas, please. We need to talk. This is crazy." "What's crazy is finding out my wife is sleeping with her coworker." Silence. Then, "I don't know what you think you know, but I know about Pierce. I know about the hotels, the restaurants, the lies. I know Kim's been covering for you. I know you weren't at girls' night on Tuesday." More silence. "Where are you?" she finally asked. "Work. You know, that place where people go to earn money instead of spending it on their boyfriend." "He's not my boyfriend." "Right. He's just some guy you have 47-minute phone conversations with and take romantic photos with at expensive bars." The line went quiet for so long, I thought she'd hung up. "I want half of everything," she said finally. "The house, the savings, the retirement accounts." "Good luck with that. Texas doesn't look kindly on cheating spouses. You can't prove anything. Want to bet?" I hung up and got back to work, but I wasn't done for the day. Not even close. At 5 p.m., I drove to Pierce's apartment complex. His Audi was in its usual spot. I parked across the street and waited. At 6:15, he came out of the building. tall, lean, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. He looked exactly like the kind of guy who would steal someone's wife and think he was doing her a favor. He got in his car and drove toward downtown. I followed at a distance, staying a few cars back. He pulled into the parking garage of the same bar where he and Haley had taken those photos. I parked on the street and walked into the bar. Upscale place, all exposed brick and craft cocktails with names like The Hemingway and Smoke and Mirrors. Pierce was at a corner table checking his phone. At 6:45, Haley walked in. She was wearing the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless. She looked beautiful, happy, excited. She looked like she was meeting her boyfriend, not having a work meeting. I took a seat at the bar where I could watch them without being seen. Ordered a beer and pretended to watch the basketball game on TV while I listened to them talk. Told him about the divorce papers, Haley was saying. He knows. How much does he know? Pierce's voice was smooth, confident, the voice of a man who'd never had to worry about consequences. Enough. He has photos, phone records. I don't know how he got them. It doesn't matter. You're getting divorced anyway. Now we can be together without sneaking around. Haley smiled and reached across the table to take his hand. I can't wait. I took out my phone and started recording video. The angle wasn't perfect, but you could clearly see both their faces, hear their conversation. What about Mia? Haley asked. Mia. I'd forgotten about Pierce's fiancée. Apparently he was cheating on his fiancée with my wife. Class act, this guy. I'll handle Mia. She's been getting clingy anyway. They ordered another round of drinks. Pierce paid with a credit card, making a show of leaving a large tip. Haley laughed at something he said, leaning in close. I finished my beer, left cash on the bar, and walked out. I had what I needed. Back home, I uploaded the video to my laptop and made copies. Then I did some research on Mia Castellano, Pierce's fiancée. Took me about 20 minutes to find her email address, Instagram account, and workplace. Mia was 36, worked in marketing for a tech company, and based on her social media posts, was deeply in love with Pierce. Lots of photos of them together at charity events, wine tastings, weekend trips to Austin and San Antonio. She deserved to know what kind of man she was planning to marry. I composed an email, professional, straightforward, with photo attachments and a link to the video I'd uploaded to a private YouTube account. Ms. Castellano, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I thought you should know that your fiancé, Pierce Dalton, is having an affair with my wife. I've attached evidence. I'm not looking for anything from you. Just thought you deserved to know the truth. Sincerely, Jonas Merrick. I hit send and went to bed. At 2:30 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Is this Jonas? This is Mia. We need to talk. I smiled in the dark. Phase 2 was about to begin. Mia Castellano turned out to be my secret weapon. We met Friday morning at a coffee shop near her office. She was exactly what I'd expected from her social media photos. Polished, professional, beautiful, in that effortless way that comes from having money and good genes. She was also furious. How long has this been going on? She asked without preamble. Based on the phone records, at least 3 months, probably longer. She stared at the printouts I'd brought, call logs, photo timestamps, credit card receipts from restaurants I'd never been to. Her hands were shaking slightly. He told me he was working late, said the boutique was expanding, needed his help with the business plan. He was helping with something all right. Mia laughed, but there was no humor in it. I should have known. He's been different lately. Distant. Always on his phone. I'm sorry. I know this isn't easy. Don't apologize. You did me a favor. She looked up from the papers. What's your plan? My plan? For revenge. Because there's no way you're just going to let this slide. I liked Mia Castellano. I'm thinking public humiliation. Something that hits both of them where it hurts, their reputations, their jobs, their social lives. I'm in. You don't even know what I'm planning yet. I don't care. Whatever it is, I'm in. We spent an hour planning. Mia had insider knowledge, Pierce's schedule, his insecurities, his social media passwords. She also had something I didn't, access to his apartment. He's supposed to take me to dinner tonight, she said. Some new place downtown. Very public, very visible. Perfect. The plan was simple. Mia would show up to dinner with printouts of the evidence. She'd confront Pierce in front of the entire restaurant, make sure everyone heard exactly what kind of man he was. I'd be there to record it all. But first, I had some business to take care of. At lunchtime, I drove to Haley's workplace. The boutique was busy. Friday afternoon, lots of women shopping for weekend outfits. I walked in like I belonged there and headed straight for the manager's office. Ms. Torres was in her 40s, no nonsense, with the kind of sharp business sense that had built Lux into one of Dallas's premier boutiques. She looked up when I knocked on her door frame. Mr. Merrick, what can I do for you? I wanted to talk to you about Haley. Her expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. What about her? I sat down uninvited and pulled out my phone. I think you should know that she's been lying about her whereabouts during work hours. I showed her the photos from the bar, the timestamps that corresponded with days Haley had claimed to be doing inventory or meeting with vendors. Ms. Torres studied the evidence without comment. Finally, she looked up. Are you here to get your wife fired? I'm here to give you information that affects your business. What you do with it is up to you. She nodded slowly. I appreciate your honesty. This explains some things. What kind of things? Missed meetings, inventory discrepancies, customer complaints about Haley being distracted or unavailable. I hadn't known about any of that. Apparently, Haley's affair was affecting more than just our marriage. There's something else, Ms. Torres said. Pierce put in his notice yesterday. Said he was taking a position with a competitor. Interesting. Pierce was jumping ship, probably planning to take Haley with him. When's his last day? Next Friday. Perfect timing. I left the boutique and spent the afternoon preparing for the evening's entertainment. I bought a small digital camera with good zoom capabilities, scouted the restaurant where Pierce and Mia were supposed to have dinner, and reviewed my video from the night before. At 7 p.m., I was sitting at the bar of Meridian, an upscale steakhouse in downtown Dallas, the kind of place where entrees started at $40 and the wine list had more pages than most novels. Pierce arrived first, looking confident and relaxed in his expensive suit. He'd reserved a corner table with a view of the city skyline. Romantic, classy, the perfect setting for what was about to happen. Mia arrived 10 minutes later. She was wearing a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary, and she looked stunning. She also looked determined. Pierce stood to greet her, leaning in for a kiss. She turned her head so he caught her cheek instead of her lips. First sign that something was wrong. They sat down, ordered drinks. Pierce was talking, gesturing with his hands, probably telling her about his day or his plans for the weekend. Mia was nodding, smiling, playing along. I had my camera ready. Their appetizers arrived. Pierce was cutting into some kind of expensive seafood when Mia reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. I have something for you, she said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Pierce smiled. What's this? Early wedding gift? You could say that. She opened the envelope and spread the contents across the table. Photos, phone records, credit card statements, evidence of his affair with Haley. Pierce's face went white, then red, then white again. Mia, I can explain. Explain what? How you've been screwing your coworker for 3 months? How you've been lying to me every day? How you've been using my credit card to pay for hotel rooms? The restaurant was getting quiet. Other diners were starting to stare. Keep your voice down, Pierce hissed. Why? Embarrassed? You should be. Mia stood up, and her voice carried across the entire dining room. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Pierce Dalton, cheating scumbag extraordinaire. He's been sleeping with a married woman while planning our wedding. Pierce tried to grab the papers, but Mia was faster. She held up one of the photos, Pierce and Haley kissing outside a hotel. "This is what a liar looks like," she announced to the room. "In case any of you were wondering." Pierce stood up so fast his chair fell over. "You're crazy. You're embarrassing yourself." "I'm embarrassing myself? That's rich, coming from a man who's been cheating on his fiancée with someone else's wife." A waiter approached nervously. "Excuse me, but if you could please—" "We're leaving," Pierce said, throwing cash on the table. "Mia, let's go." "We're not going anywhere together ever again." She pulled off her engagement ring and dropped it into his water glass. "Have a nice life, Pierce. Try not to ruin anyone else's marriage on your way out." She walked out of the restaurant with her head high, leaving Pierce standing alone next to an overturned chair while 50 people stared at him in silence. I got it all on video. Pierce left a few minutes later, practically running for the exit. I followed him outside and watched him get into his Audi with shaking hands. Phase 2. Complete. But I wasn't done with Pierce Dalton, not even close. Saturday morning, I woke up to find my dog missing. Rex was a golden retriever I'd rescued 3 years ago. Friendly, loyal, the kind of dog who'd never met a stranger. He slept in the backyard in a fenced area that was secure enough to keep him in and keep other animals out. The gate was open, the lock was broken. I found a note taped to my front door. "Want your dog back? Stop sleeping with my life." Pierce had stolen my dog. I called Gabe. "I need backup." "What happened?" "Pierce Dalton kidnapped Rex." "He what?" "Long story. Can you meet me at his apartment?" "Give me 20 minutes. Gabe showed up with his cousin Eddie, an ex-Marine who worked construction and looked like he could bench press a pickup truck. Eddie didn't ask questions, just cracked his knuckles and asked where we were going. Pierce's apartment complex looked different in daylight. Less sophisticated, more pretentious. All glass and steel and landscaping that required more water than most small towns used in a month. We took the elevator to the 15th floor. Pierce's apartment was at the end of the hall, corner unit with floor-to-ceiling windows and probably a view that justified the ridiculous rent. I knocked on the door. No answer. I knocked again, harder. "Pierce, I know you're in there." The door opened, but only a few inches. Pierce's face appeared in the gap, and he looked like hell. Unshaven, bloodshot eyes, still wearing yesterday's clothes. "What do you want?" "My dog." "I don't know what you're talking about." Eddie stepped forward. He was 6'4" and had the kind of presence that made people reconsider their life choices. "He said he wants his dog back." Pierce's eyes widened. "I don't have your dog." "Then you won't mind if we look around," Gabe said. "You can't come in here. I'll call the police." "Good idea," I said. "Let's call them. I'm sure they'd be interested in hearing about how you broke into my yard and stole my dog." Pierce opened the door a little wider. He was nervous, sweating, despite the air conditioning. "Look, this is all a misunderstanding." That's when I heard barking from inside the apartment. "Rex!" I called out. More barking, definitely Rex's voice. "Move," Eddie said, and Pierce stepped aside. We found Rex locked in the bathroom, looking confused but unharmed. He jumped all over me when I opened the door, tail wagging like nothing had happened. Pierce was standing in his living room, hands shaking. "I was just trying to make a point." "What point? That you're a dog-stealing piece of shit? You ruined my life." "I didn't ruin anything. I just told people the truth. Mia left me. She took the ring, she took her stuff, she's telling everyone what happened. Good for Mia. My boss heard about the restaurant thing. He's reconsidering my employment status." "Sounds like consequences." Pierce's face was getting red. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you won? I think I got my dog back and you're about to get arrested for theft. I could have hurt him. I could have taken him to the pound, had him put down." Eddie stepped forward again. Did you just threaten his dog? Pierce backed up. No, I was just saying, because it sounded like you threatened his dog. I didn't mean. Eddie grabbed Pierce by the front of his shirt and lifted him off the ground. Listen carefully, you piece of shit. If you go near this man, his wife, his dog, or his property again, I will find you, and I will make you regret it. Do you understand? Pierce nodded frantically. I can't hear you. Yes, I understand. Eddie set him down. Pierce stumbled backward, nearly falling over his coffee table. Good talk, Eddie said. We left Pierce's apartment with Rex trotting happily beside us. In the elevator, Gabe started laughing. Did you see his face when Eddie grabbed him? I thought he was going to piss himself, I said. He might have, Eddie said. Wouldn't be the first time. But our victory celebration was short-lived. When I got home, there were 3 messages on my answering machine. The first was from Haley. Jonas, we need to talk. This has gone too far. The second was from a lawyer I'd never heard of. Mr. Merrick, this is David Chen representing Pierce Dalton. My client intends to file harassment charges unless you cease your campaign of intimidation immediately. The third was from my bank. Mr. Merrick, there's been some unusual activity on your accounts. Please call us as soon as possible. I called the bank first. Haley had tried to withdraw $10,000 from our savings account. The teller had blocked the transaction because it required both signatures, but she'd made a scene, claimed I was hiding assets from her. I called Clara Wyatt next. They're fighting back, she said after I explained what had happened. Expect things to get ugly. How ugly? Uglier than they already are. But don't worry, we've got more ammunition than they do. She was right. But I was starting to realize that Haley and Pierce weren't going to go down without a fight. And I was ready for a fight. The final confrontation came on a Tuesday night in April, exactly 1 month after Haley's phone went silent. It was raining. One of those Texas thunderstorms that turns the sky black and makes you think about flood insurance. I was home alone, Rex at my feet, watching the news and eating leftover Chinese food, when my doorbell rang. Pierce and Haley were standing on my front porch, both soaked from the rain. Pierce looked like he'd lost weight, his expensive clothes hanging loose on his frame. Haley looked tired, older somehow, with dark circles under her eyes. We need to talk, Haley said. We have lawyers for that. This is important. I let them in, mostly because I was curious about what they could possibly have to say. They stood in my living room dripping water on the carpet, looking around at the home Haley had walked away from. Nice place, Pierce said. Cozy. What do you want? Haley stepped forward. I want you to stop. This whole thing has gone too far. What whole thing? You know what? The divorce papers, the public humiliation, turning everyone against us. I didn't turn anyone against you. I just told them the truth. You destroyed my reputation. You destroyed your reputation. I just documented it. Pierce cleared his throat. Look, Jonas, we get it. You're angry, but this needs to end. Does it? Haley and I are together now. The divorce is happening whether you like it or not. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. I looked at him, really looked at him. A month ago, Pierce Dalton had been confident, arrogant, the kind of man who took what he wanted without thinking about consequences. Now, he looked desperate. How's the job search going, Pierce? His jaw tightened. Fine. Really? Because I heard Nordstrom decided not to hire you after all. Something about reputation concerns. Haley glanced at Pierce. Apparently, this was news to her. And Macy's passed too, and Saks. Funny how word gets around in the fashion industry. You snake, Pierce said. You've been calling my potential employers. I haven't called anyone, but Mia has a lot of friends in retail. Turns out people don't like hiring cheaters. Pierce took a step toward me. You think you're so smart? I think I'm smarter than a guy who steals dogs and threatens people. I never threatened anyone. Really? Because I have a recording of you telling me you could have had Rex put down. Pierce's face went pale. That's not what I meant. Doesn't matter what you meant. Matters what you said. Haley was looking back and forth between us, like she was watching a tennis match. What recording? Pierce, what is he talking about? It's nothing, baby. Just a misunderstanding. Don't call her baby, I said. She's still my wife. Not for long, Haley snapped. The divorce will be final in 60 days. Assuming you can afford a lawyer. How's that going, by the way? I heard you got fired from the boutique. Haley's face flushed red. Ms. Torres is a vindictive snake. Ms. Torres is a smart businesswoman who doesn't want employees who lie about their schedules and steal from the inventory. I never stole anything. No? What about that necklace you gave Pierce for his birthday? The one from the boutique's spring collection? The one that never made it into the system as sold? Haley's mouth opened, then closed. She looked at Pierce, who was staring at his shoes. That was a mistake, she said finally. A paperwork error. Right, just like your affair was a mistake. Just like lying to me for 3 months was a mistake. The room went quiet, except for the sound of rain against the windows and Rex snoring by the fireplace. What do you want? Pierce asked finally. I want you both to disappear. I want you to leave Dallas, leave Texas, leave my life completely. We can't just leave, we have lives here. What lives? Pierce, you're unemployed and unemployable. Your fiancée left you, your friends won't return your calls, and your landlord is evicting you for non-payment of rent. Pierce's hands clenched into fists. How do you know about... And Haley, you're living in a studio apartment that costs more than you can afford, working part-time at a department store for $12 an hour, and driving a car that's about to be repossessed. You bastard, Haley whispered. You did this to us. I didn't do anything except tell people the truth. You did this to yourselves. Pierce stepped forward again. You want to destroy us? Fine. But we'll take you down with us. How? I'll tell everyone you threatened me, that you broke into my apartment, stole my property, assaulted me. With witnesses, Eddie and Gabe will testify that you stole my dog. The apartment building's security cameras will show that you let us in voluntarily. Pierce's confidence was cracking. I'll think of something. No, you won't. Because you're not that smart. You're just a mediocre man who thought he could steal another man's wife and face no consequences. Screw you. Screw you too. Pierce lunged at me. I was ready for it. Had been ready for it since the moment he walked through my door. He was taller than me, but I was angrier, and anger is a hell of a motivator. I sidestepped his clumsy charge and let him crash into my coffee table. He went down hard, knocking over my lamp and sending Chinese food containers flying. Rex woke up and started barking. Pierce tried to get up, slipped on some sweet and sour sauce, and went down again. This time he stayed down, holding his ribs and groaning. Get out, I said. Haley was kneeling next to Pierce, checking for injuries. You could have ruined him. He attacked me in my own home. I defended myself. I'm calling the police. Good idea. I'm sure they'll be interested in hearing about the theft, the harassment, the trespassing. Haley helped Pierce to his feet. He was limping slightly, favoring his left side. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is. They left without another word, Pierce leaning on Haley for support as they walked to their car. I watched from my window as they drove away, Haley's beat-up Honda struggling in the rain. I cleaned up the mess in my living room, fed Rex, and poured myself a drink. Then I sat down at my laptop and did something I'd been planning for weeks. I uploaded everything. Photos, videos, audio recordings, documents. I created a website called The Truth About Pierce and Haley and posted it all. Every lie, every betrayal, every piece of evidence I'd collected. Then I shared the link on social media, sent it to their friends, their families, their former coworkers. I made sure everyone they'd ever known could see exactly what kind of people they really were. My phone started ringing almost immediately. Friends, neighbors, people I barely knew, all wanting to know if the website was real. It's all true, I told them. Every word. By morning, the website had been viewed over 10,000 times. By the end of the week, it was closer to 50,000. Pierce and Haley left Dallas the following Monday. I know because their landlord called to tell me they'd abandoned their apartment, left their furniture, and disappeared in the middle of the night. I never saw them again. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. I kept the house, the savings, the retirement accounts. Haley got her clothes and her car, which was repossessed 3 days after the papers were signed. Clara Wyatt sent me a bill for her services with a note. Pleasure doing business with you. Call me if you ever need someone else destroyed. I kept the note. You never know when you might need a good lawyer. 6 months later, I was sitting in my backyard with Rex, drinking a beer and watching the sunset. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I hope you're happy. You destroyed our lives. I looked at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. I was happy. For the first time in months, I was genuinely, completely happy. Some people might say I went too far. That revenge is wrong, that I should have taken the high road, that I should have forgiven and moved on. Those people have never had their wife cheat on them with a pretentious asshole who steals dogs. I learned something important during those months of planning and executing my revenge. Sometimes the truth is the most devastating weapon you can use. Sometimes the best way to destroy someone is to simply show the world who they really are. Pierce Dalton thought he was untouchable. Haley thought she was smarter than me. They both thought I'd just roll over and take it, that I'd be the understanding husband who quietly accepted betrayal and moved on with his life. They were wrong. I'm not the kind of man who turns the other cheek.